Kids as young as 11 accused of attempting to rob an animal shelter employee at gunpoint. New today, Fox 45 News questions what's being done to curb youth violence in Baltimore. A health clinic discovered to have unsanitary conditions remained open for 2 years without addressing a fix. Fox 45 News investigates why the city never cleaned it up or shut it down. A city student viciously beaten at school.
I want answers, and I want these children held accountable.
Fox 45 News makes this father's safety concerns heard.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
An attempted robbery at gunpoint shuts down a popular Baltimore animal shelter. Now they've reopened. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. The incident is bringing up renewed concern about kids and crime.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is live in Cherry Hill in South Baltimore. So, Mackenzie, you're looking at the issue of youth violence today. Is that right?
Yeah, Guy, and that's right. And some people would say that they are working on this problem, and critics would say not enough is being done to address it. We know, looking at the Baltimore Police Department's incident report about this, that some of the youngest people in Baltimore, a suspect could be as young as 11 years old, were involved in this attempted armed robbery of the employee of Barks. The shelter is back open, but it's bringing up these renewed questions about what is being done to try and keep young people out of the criminal justice system. A rainy reopening for the Baltimore Animal Rescue and Care Shelter. Barks back open for adoptions, but with an added layer of security. An incident report from the Baltimore police says kids as young as 11 years old are the ones who tried to rob an animal shelter employee at gunpoint. So far, no arrests have been made. But these kids, just the latest in a growing, troubling trend: youth violence, children being victims or perpetrators in the city's crime crisis. A 15-year-old squeegee kid charged with killing 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds at the intersection of Light and Conway Streets in July. A month later, a 9-year-old gunned down a 15-year-old girl at her own home. That 9-year-old too young to face charges in Maryland due to the new laws enacted this year.
The juvenile justice system in Maryland right now is severely broken.
Sean Kennedy from the Maryland Public Policy Institute says the uptick in crime among teens and sometimes younger shows the reason why the public needs to know what's going on inside the juvenile court system.
The public is basically in the dark about what's going on.
In Annapolis last year, a sweeping juvenile justice package soared through the General Assembly. Led by Baltimore City Senator Jill Carter, the plan: kids under 10 cannot be charged with a crime at all. After the 15-year-old was killed, Carter says she stands by her legislation, writing in a statement the plan is based on best practices, adding, quote, nothing in the law would prevent a 9-year-old child alleged to have committed a heinous act from receiving developmentally appropriate intervention or rehabilitation programs, services, and treatment. But Baltimore City Delegate Dahlia Attar backed a different bill to shine some light on the juvenile system.
Delving deep into that information.
Her bill would have created a database of all crimes involving kids for the public while still shielding their names. The legislation getting support from the police department and City Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer.
When it comes to the non-transparent juvenile system, we have no idea what happens other than that we see the same violent juveniles are reoffending.
The bill stalling in committee, failing to get enough traction to bring information into the public's view. Attar used to work in a juvenile detention center, and she has seen firsthand the importance of implementing consequences.
Where we had juveniles that would start off with a minor crime, and once they're in the system, they'd come back for something else that's even worse and worse. And then unfortunately, many of these juveniles end up becoming adults and committing crimes as well.
According to data from BPD, 10 kids under the age of 18 have been charged with murder this year alone.
Clearly, the focus in the leadership of the city and really in the leadership of the state in the General Assembly has been sort of some of the softer approaches that are consistent with, again, juvenile delinquency, not with, hardcore violent crimes, which is really what we're talking about here. Street robberies, carjackings, shootings, and murders.
Jason Johnson, former deputy BPD commissioner, says all arms of government need to work together to ensure accountability becomes reality.
If we arrest kids, 15, 16-year-olds, for committing a robbery or a carjacking, for example, and they're right back out on the street they're going to commit more. I mean, we see it happen all the time. So there really does need to be some real accountability.
From an Inner Harbor homicide where a 15-year-old was arrested to a high school parking lot where a 17-year-old football player was killed after school and another 17-year-old faces charges for his death. And now kids under 14 apparently trying to rob an animal shelter employee. While leaders mull how to handle the youth violence, it's not stopping. Now, I reached out to Delegate Attar today to see if she has any plans to get her juvenile database sunshine bill through the General Assembly again next year, but I've yet to hear back. We're live in South Baltimore. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. That brings us to our question of the day. Should there be more transparency regarding juveniles who commit crime? So far, 75% of those who voted say yes. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard.
A barricade situation brought out a major police presence at Denham Circle in Cherry Hill this afternoon. Officers say the suspect was taken into custody for attempted murder. Police say they'll release more information later.
Well, a dead rat, rodent droppings, and other unsanitary conditions. Fox 45 News is pressing for answers after a recent report by the city's inspector general revealed a Baltimore health clinic failed to correct issues discovered at the facility nearly 2 years ago. Alexa Ashwell questioned why the clinic wasn't shut down. She joins us live with the mayor's response tonight. Alexa?
Well, Mary, that's a question we did ask the Baltimore City Health Department. The city now facing pricey federal health violations. And according to this report, the people who rely on this clinic still dealing with unsanitary conditions.
The shocking pictures of potentially the same dead rat taken 18 months apart and from inside the Druid Sexual Health Clinic here on North Avenue, prompting new questions, including why the city didn't shut down the clinic due to such unsanitary conditions outlined in this follow-up report by Baltimore's Inspector General.
Our report actually said that there was not only the rat, but there was also droppings, there was cockroaches found, there was all types of unsanitary conditions for employees that work at this clinic.
Inspector General Isabel Cummings says her office originally investigated the clinic back in 2020 after complaints over unsanitary working conditions. Another inspection was conducted this year. After complaints, nothing had changed. So why wasn't more immediate action taken or the clinic shut down as businesses likely would have been here in the city? Over the radio, the mayor questioned on this.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And and that also makes until they get these things mitigated, right?
Yes, right.
We have that problem with places over and over again, what we call frequent flyers, which is why this has the attention that it has. What I'll say is that they did work, right? But that when you're talking about a building that is in that condition, and you know how long it's been in a condition like that, C4, we know that a lot of that is going to be a deep work that has to happen. It's going to take a long time.
But taxpayer watchdog David Williams says the city has more than enough money to address the problem swiftly.
Remember, the city received $600 million from taxpayers, part of COVID federal relief, right? So the mayor said, okay, $80 million for health agencies. There is plenty of money to fix these problems. That's why this is about leadership.
Now, in response to my question, a spokesperson with the health department wrote in part, quote, "We are working to remedy the issues inside the building as best we can. We value the health and safety of our patients and staff and are actively seeking both short-term and long-term solutions to the issues flagged in the report." Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
The whole situation was absolutely traumatizing.
A crisis in the classroom. A Baltimore County mother is demanding action after her 10-year-old son is hit by a car heading home from school. That accident happened outside Dundalk Elementary School. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has more right now on the boy's injuries and the mother's calls for change. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, that accident, it happened right here just outside of one of the school's main entrances. The accident, it wasn't life-threatening, but the boy's mother fears the next one might be. Tiffany Pruitt, she says that her son, Desmond, he looked both ways before crossing when a car came out of nowhere, fracturing his femur and putting him in a wheelchair for the next 2 months. Meanwhile, police say Desmond darted out and crossed where he shouldn't have. Either way, Tiffany wants this crosswalk manned and more of an emphasis on speed enforcement in the area.
I feel like this wouldn't happen if there was a crossing guard. I personally got out of my car and walked kids across the street to make sure they were safe. I think it's a problem everywhere you go.
Baltimore County Police admitting there is currently a shortage of crossing guards across the country. They couldn't give me an exact number of vacancies, though. They also say even though this is an official intersection, they say that this isn't an official intersection, despite the fact that there is a crosswalk right here. They said that because of that, they don't usually schedule a crossing guard at this section of the street.
Interesting. So, Rebecca, do police plan on putting a crossing guard at that crosswalk in the future? And I'm sure Desmond's mother would like to see that, as well as other parents.
Yes, she absolutely would. And Kai, I followed up with them asking that question. I'm still waiting to hear back. Again, like I said, though, there's a shortage of crossing guards across the county, so it'll be interesting to hear what they have to say. I'll have more on that issue in its entirety coming up tonight at 5. Reporting live in Dundalk, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. Well, first on Fox, a Northeast Baltimore high school student says he was beaten at school on Monday.
Now his father's demanding answers and says he'll never send his son back to city schools. Fox 45's Mancini Stryker has the story.
Malik Allen is a 10th grade student at Reginald F. Lewis High School in Northeast Baltimore.
You can't win for losing in this town. It's sad to say.
Or should we say, was a student there.
He's never going back to Baltimore City Public Schools.
Malik's father, Hassan Giordano, says his son won't be going back after he says he was viciously beaten Monday morning at school.
The doctor said he had a concussion and a seizure during the incident.
Malik says he doesn't remember what happened, but his face tells the story.
Not at all, besides getting dropped off in the morning.
When Giordano arrived at the school Monday, he says he wasn't able to get a straight answer about what happened to his son.
They would not show me the videotape of what happened. I was given 3 different accounts of what happened.
And then he says he was handed a transfer paper for his son, suggesting he enroll him elsewhere.
We need solutions. I mean, you can't keep having these incidents, covering them up, sweeping them over, and then there's no parent in Baltimore City, I can tell you right now, that feels safe sending their kids to city schools. They just don't. But most of us are in a situation that what can you do?
Giordano says he never felt good about sending his son to Baltimore City Public Schools. At one point, Malik did attend a private school, but the cost was just too high.
It's really the lion's den. We're literally sending our children off just to learn an education that is not a quality education. They're learning education in the streets. They're forcing parents in Baltimore City who really don't have the means to either put them in private school or move to another jurisdiction that has better schools.
Now, as Malik recovers, unsure of what the future may hold.
I've been a little dizzy and head hurting. Other than that, I'm good.
His father is left stuck between a rock and a hard place, hoping at the very least someone is held accountable.
I want answers, and I want these children held accountable.
And that was Mancini Stryker reporting. We reached out to Baltimore City Public Schools to see what actions were being taken. They did acknowledge our questions, but we have not yet heard back. Well, taxpayers may be footing the bill for City Council President Nick Mosby's weekend at the Preakness. Why one taxpayer watchdog says that could violate Maryland law.
And your Thursday evening commute, gusty but dry and turning cooler. Temperatures falling into the 60s. I'm going to let you know how cool it's going to get and how long it's been since we've been that cool by tomorrow morning. My Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
In your Vote 2022 coverage, it was 2 years ago that a senator from Pennsylvania made major headlines when he announced he wasn't going to run again.
Immediately, there was a scramble over Pat Toomey's seat. Political observers say the Keystone State is key to the balance of power in Washington.
Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman is there to see how the race is shaping up.
Despite the feel of quiet here in tiny Donora, Pennsylvania, it is the stage, like many towns across this state, for an epic battle that could ultimately decide who has control in Washington. The Senate seat fight between Republican TV celebrity Dr. Mehmet Oz and current Lieutenant Governor Democrat John Fetterman. At the Early Bird Diner, this group meeting here every Thursday says they mostly just want someone in D.C. to hear them.
Years ago, they used to listen to the people, and they would talk to the people, but they don't even do that anymore. It's sad that, it's just like we're nobody.
They're fighting. The Republicans can't agree with the Democrats, and they will never work together.
And they hate the rampant mudslinging. Oz accused of not having real Pennsylvania roots and hammered for his ties to Trump. Fetterman portrayed as too liberal and his health and sharpness questioned following a stroke.
I just hate the bashing. I hate the commercials. Yes. They're constant. They're disgusting.
The issues, they insist, matter most. In towns like this all across Pennsylvania, there is a common thread that's likely to have an impact at the ballot box. Economic struggles. Here, 8 in 10 say those higher prices are causing a real hardship.
You're talking fuel oil now at $5 a gallon. So you fill up a 1,000-gallon tank. How many people's just going to come up with $5,000 to heat their house for half a year?
Republicans seeing a boost in light of soaring inflation and vows to crack down on crime.
John Fetterman's trying to get as many criminals out of prison as he can. Far left John Fetterman, dangerously liberal on crime.
Democrats more fired up to vote after the Supreme Court's controversial decision on abortion.
And now Mehmet Oz is so extreme, he wants to make abortion a crime in Pennsylvania.
Are you looking forward to the election?
I'm just looking forward to a better tomorrow. The election, I've seen enough politicians say that they're going to do something and they don't do it.
Like anywhere, they just want a Washington that'll serve them something good. In Donora, Pennsylvania, I'm Scott Thuman.
Developing now, the man found dead in a burned-out car in Lincoln Park overnight has now been connected to a call for a stabbing and abduction in Anne Arundel County. Police saying the victim was abducted from a garage at the Arundel Preserve Complex at about 9 o'clock last night. Many questions surround this case. We have a reporter gathering information right now. We'll have updates throughout the night.
Puerto Rico was working to restore power across the island after Hurricane Fiona devastated them. The Associated Press reports roughly 70% of Puerto Rico's 1.5 million power customers are still in the dark days after the storm. More than 500,000 customers don't have water service as of Wednesday night. Now, the National Hurricane Center says Fiona is expected to pass close by Bermuda early Friday.
Yeah, the warnings are posted for Bermuda. I saw it as the path of that storm was heading north.
At least tropical storm force conditions there, and then potentially this could, as it just starts turning extratropical, could intensify and actually become one of the strongest storms in recorded history to impact eastern Canada.
Wow.
So really interesting stuff. Big storm surges as well as rain. We don't usually think about, Nova Scotia and hurricanes, but the potential there of at least Category 1 strength. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got going on around here. And yeah, some showers this morning and midday as promised. Now those have moved south and east. We do have mostly cloudy skies still on the Mile 1 Taos and Cam. It is dry and it is starting to feel fall-like. Those winds out of the west-northwest at 18 miles an hour as we look forward to fall, arriving at 9:04 p.m. this evening. Humidity 36%. And our dew point, that's a measure of moisture in the air lower than it's been as of late, down at 48 degrees. When the dew points are in the 30s and 40s, it feels almost crisp outside. So really kind of gorgeous, in fact, with just some of those patchy clouds there on the Mile 1 Taos and Cam. Right now, the temperature at 73 at Westminster. We're at 77 here in Baltimore, as well as at Laurel, 73, Gaithersburg, 71 at Chestertown, where the rain is just exiting in the mid to upper 60s, Elkton down to Denton. Take a look at these temperature deficits running about 9 degrees cooler than just 24 hours ago here in Baltimore. 11 degrees down at Laurel and Gaithersburg, and even colder yet out toward Cumberland. And it's that colder air that continues to haul on in all the way into tonight and tomorrow. Some of the coldest air, in fact, that we've seen since May around here. HD radar taking the rain showers and any rumbles of thunder down towards Seaford, Delaware, as well as Salisbury, as that latest weather maker. Strong cold front pulls on through. Gusty, cool winds out of the north and west rolling in. The showers exiting, and a couple of cool days coming on its heels. Now, down in the tropics, Fiona, again, going to make that quick push next day or two right off to the west of Bermuda with some big wind and big rain. And then eventually there it is, maybe a historically strong storm as it makes a final landfall in eastern Canada. Gaston is just going to be generally a what we call a fish storm here, affecting the shipping lanes of the North Atlantic. Then there's a high chance of development that's just north of the northern tip here of South America. It's going to be moving its way, all computer models say, somewhere across the Caribbean as it strengthens. And then eventually we'll just have to see, does it go over Cuba or does it end up somewhere in the Straits here and then eventually ending up toward Louisiana or Texas or Alabama? Really, the jury's still out on that one, but it could have some impacts on the United States as a stronger system into next week, and then a low and medium chance of development way out in the Atlantic as well. So the remainder of the day today into tonight, it looks like the chill sets up some 40s, 50s into the overnight hours, and then tomorrow, a much cooler, blustery day, even with sunshine, temperatures struggling into the 60s. After a low in the 40s again into Saturday, we do make it up to 74. Ravens game's up in Foxborough on Sunday, but around here, 79, some scattered showers, maybe a rumble, and a leftover shower Monday before another cool down next week.
Jonathan, thank you. Russians are fighting back against joining their country's war in Ukraine. How authorities there are now cracking down on dissent. Healthcare costs could soon skyrocket. Why? Industry experts say you need to be prepared. Well, developing news, more than 1,300 anti-war protesters in Russia were arrested Wednesday as thousands demonstrate against President Vladimir Putin's move to call up reservists to fight in the war, according to an independent Russian human rights group. The crackdown shows more dissatisfaction with the conflict. In the first 6 months of the war, Russia arrested more than 16,000 protesters. Well, former President Donald Trump raises some eyebrows on Fox News when he is asked if he declassified the documents he brought to Mar-a-Lago, and if so, what his process was.
There doesn't have to be a process, as I understand it. You know, there's different people say different things, but as I understand, there doesn't have to be. If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it.
The president does have authority to declassify information, but according to former President Obama's 2009 executive order, President Trump had to tell heads of the agencies that originally classified the information. The requirement is meant to protect national security. There's no evidence Trump changed Obama's rule. Trump maintains he issued a standing order that documents taken to Mar-a-Lago would instantly be declassified. It's unclear if that's true because his lawyers won't claim he did. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones is set to testify in another trial today. Jones has been on trial this week in Connecticut for calling the Sandy Hook school shooting a hoax. Jones has already been found liable for damages. This trial is to determine how much he must pay to the families of the victims. And it comes after Jones was already ordered to pay nearly $50 million in damages to the parents of one of the slain children in a trial last month. Well, next on Fox 45 News at 4, Johns Hopkins University prepares to launch its own police force, how it could help safety in Baltimore, and why some didn't like the idea of it before. Well, millions of dollars meant to hire school nurses. Money that's gone to North Avenue, but not all the positions are filled. Project Baltimore investigates where the money is being spent.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group, Call 410 the Firm.
Administrators at Johns Hopkins are making another move toward establishing their own police force. Jeff Abel is live on campus, where a community meeting is slated for this evening. Jeff?
That's right. You know, right now, Hopkins has about 1,000 private security officers securing this campus, but Hopkins has long wanted its own police force with its own police powers. And tonight it's making another bold move toward getting it. As you remember, a similar move 2 years ago prompted protests from those demanding less law enforcement, not more. At the time, the university put its police plans on hold. But tonight it is launching a community meeting where it is expected to lay out its case for another police force. 2 years ago, the legislature gave Hopkins the green light to move forward, and it had the support of former Congressman Elijah Cummings.
Somebody say Hopkins gets whatever Hopkins wants. It ain't about that. It's bigger than that. It's about life and death.
Well, if it happens, city police officers would still be investigating major crimes on this campus. However, its police force here at Hopkins would investigate other crimes like burglaries, breaking and entering, and theft. We're live on Hopkins campus tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. An update now. Mount Airy Police Chief Doug Wright joined Fox 45 Morning News to talk about how his department helped catch suspects who had a homemade bomb in a car across the street from Pine Grove Middle School. That caused that school and Pine Grove Elementary to evacuate on Tuesday. Well, 43-year-old Joseph Vickery is accused of making that device. His wife, Kristen, was arrested on drug charges. The investigation started as a theft investigation in Mount Airy. The victim in that case, Kristen's mother, told officers Joseph might be making explosives.
Our officer didn't discount that. To his credit, he took that information and he looked into it more deeply and actually conducted a little bit of investigating himself to kind of verify what and kind of concur with what the victim was telling us at that point. So with all that information, that's what led us to contact the FBI and the ATF and the Howard County Police.
Well, Wright says the victim believes that Joseph Vickery planned to use the bomb against the victim's family. Now, parents of students at Pine Grove Middle say they're frustrated it took so long for them to get any information.
For me, it's kind of like, how hard is it to go and say, you know, hey, there's been an incident, you know, we're working with first responders, but this is what's going on.
Along with multiple charges connected to the makeshift explosives, Joseph Vickery is also facing several illegal firearm and drug charges. Wright said he would not comment on what charges Kristen is facing.
Adnan Syed's lawyer is now talking about the process of working to get his case back into court and reconsider. Erica Suter told WYPR this afternoon that she worked with prosecutors to take a second look, filing a joint motion to retest DNA evidence last March, ultimately leading to the state's motion to vacate. Now, she says Syed's case is more the exception than the norm because the American justice system generally wants to uphold convictions.
Our legal system wants to maintain its verdicts, and there are reasonable reasons for that. But then when you come to some cases where it is so clear that somebody didn't have a fair shot and a fair opportunity, that priority toward finality needs to give way to justice.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has not yet said whether Syed will face a retrial.
Well, many people in Baltimore go to Preakness to have a fun time and take in all the excitement. It can be an expensive day. Now, City Council President Nick Mosby wants taxpayers to cover his bill. Patrice Sanders speaks with a taxpayer watchdog about why this request could be against Maryland law.
The Preakness Stakes is a huge annual event for Maryland and the city of Baltimore. It brings out leaders from all around the state and city. City Council President Nick Mosby was one of the leaders in attendance, and there are questions about expenses related to his attendance. The council president submitted an invoice for admission and parking and food over 2 days of the event, totaling about $1,100. Adam Angievsky, CEO of Open the Books, says Mosby needs to show how his attendance was the work of the city.
Maryland is a Dillon's Rule state.
Dillon's rule is very specific. If you're going to make an expenditure of the public's money, there has to be an underlying statute to make that expenditure lawful. So we're calling on Nick Mosby, who did not answer our request for comment, to cite specifically in the law where he gets the authority to make the expenditure. Because in Maryland, public funds, taxpayer funds, cannot be used for a private purpose. For example, the Maryland Jockey Club has 11 levels of dining over there at the field. And Nick Mosby chose the 4-star level of dining. So even if he was conducting the public's business, he needs to justify why he needed to do it in the Terrence room.
The mayor and city state's attorney Marilyn Mosby were also at the Preakness, but Andrzejewski says he has not seen invoices from them. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Another scandal could be forming in Baltimore City schools as tens of millions of your tax dollars are going to North Avenue to provide full-time coverage by a healthcare practitioner at all high schools with high rates of poverty.
That's right. City Schools is keeping that money, but as Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, it appears the healthcare coverage is not being provided.
Glenn Carmen has been a licensed registered nurse his entire adult life. 42 years. And now, for the first time, he's scared about student safety.
Do you feel it's just a matter of time before something bad happens?
Absolutely. Carmen works for the Baltimore City Health Department, which supplies nurses for Baltimore City Public Schools. For the past 5 years, Carmen, like most nurses, has cared for students at one school. But this year, he's been assigned to 3 schools. Each day, he rotates between 2 on East 43rd Street and 1 on West 36th Street, which is 15 minutes away.
This is the first time I'm uncomfortable. You know, if I'm at one side of town and I have to get to the other side of town, it's going to take me 15 minutes. A lot changes within 15 minutes in an emergency. It could be the matter of life and death, just that time.
Project Baltimore has obtained the schedules for 12 other nurses. Each one is assigned to 3 schools. Most are high poverty. And Carmen says this is not just about student safety.
Right.
It's about state law.
You believe the law is being broken?
I know the law is being broken.
The Blueprint for Maryland's Future, also known as the Kirwan Plan, was passed by Maryland's legislature in 2021. Under Kirwan, schools with high concentrations of poverty shall provide full-time coverage by at least one professional healthcare practitioner who is a licensed physician, a licensed physician's assistant, or a licensed registered nurse. Baltimore City has 121 high-poverty schools. According to the City Health Department, 89 of them are staffed with a certified nursing assistant, not a professional healthcare practitioner, as defined under Kirwan. City schools told us a national nursing shortage has made this challenging. To provide the coverage required by Kirwan, registered nurses, like Carmen, are rotating between schools.
Emergencies are being covered by the nursing assistant, but they're not being trained for those adequately.
City schools this year received $32 million from the Kirwan Plan's Concentration of Poverty Grant to ensure schools have licensed health care providers. The Maryland State Department of Education told Fox 45, Kirwan does not require schools to hire a licensed health care provider, meaning they don't have to have one on staff, but someone must be available to provide full-time coverage at every school. The district took the money, but 89 schools do not have a licensed registered nurse at all times. So is this a violation of the Kirwan Plan? To find out, we asked Britt Kirwan.
In this country, low-income people don't have access to health care that more affluent families do have.
Kirwan told Fox 45 the licensed nurse provision in the law is essential to learning.
We thought that by ensuring that there was highly qualified health care deliverers in each school, we could mitigate the disadvantage that low-income kids have.
Project Baltimore contacted the 5 school systems that surround Baltimore City. Each one reports having a licensed nurse assigned to each high-poverty school. The question then becomes, does a registered nurse who splits time between several city schools equal full-time coverage? The law is not clear. But if city schools is not meeting the health provider expectations, Kerwin says a district will have to produce a compelling reason why, or the state could withhold funding.
It's concerning because we deem that as a very important aspect of these concentration of poverty grants. I have to take on faith that they are doing everything they can to get qualified health care providers in each school.
They're accepting the money. They're not providing the service. I'll be honest to you, the law is the law. You're correct. But until you're caught, until you're punished, it doesn't stop you from doing it.
So Baltimore City Schools received $32 million to hire licensed healthcare providers at high-poverty schools. If they didn't use the money to hire nurses, then where did the money go? Well, city schools told us they used the excess funds to meet other student needs, but that may also be a violation of Kerwin. According to the law, the school system cannot spend the extra funds until a full-time licensed healthcare provider is at every high-poverty school. But again, the law does not define what full-time means. Now, coming up on Monday, Project Baltimore will have more with our interview with Britt Kerwin. We ask him about the teacher shortages, the effects of COVID, and what would have to happen for the Kerwin plan to be considered a success. That story, Monday at 10. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Violence in a Montgomery County football game as school leaders are changing rules, how they are hoping to make games safe for everyone.
And a big chill on the way for tonight. Temperatures falling into the 50s, even some 40s. The last time we were in the 40s back on May 11th, earlier this spring. I'm going to let you know when things warm up and if it's going to come with some rain, too, over this weekend. We're tracking it all hour by hour. My Weather Authority forecast.
Around the state, a violent Friday night leads to a new safety plan for all Montgomery County public school football games. The superintendent and athletic director outlined those new rules after two fights at last Friday's game between Northwest and Gaithersburg high schools. Kevin Lewis with our Sinclair sister station in Washington has details.
We just aren't the people that you saw on the news.
Friday's brawl during the Gaithersburg versus Northwest High School football game captured MCPS's attention. The school system now says starting this Friday, it will implement a number of safety enhancements for all high school games. Perhaps most notable, students from participating schools will still be allowed in with a valid ticket and student ID. However, all other school-age spectators must now have an adult chaperone with them at all times. Other new rules include no backpacks, no re-entry to stadiums, and no admittance after halftime.
Closing of concession stands. Further limitation of our spectators. Only parents of participants, or in an extreme circumstance, having no spectators. We don't want to go here.
Meanwhile, 7 News has learned that Gaithersburg High School athletic director William Gant has filed a criminal charge of second-degree assault against Travis Hopkins, seen here on Twitter. Gant alleges Hopkins, who is Northwest High School's head varsity football coach, struck him in the head and shoulder during the brawl. Today, MCPS dodged reporter questions about both men.
We are not going to comment on any arrests or police actions, so those questions can be directed towards law enforcement.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at that beautiful, shall we? Have sunshine finally coming back. Mostly cloudy skies on the Toyota East Harbor Skycam as you take a nice look there at Camden Yards. The humidity coming down and the breezy conditions beginning to set up as we see some of the chilliest air that we've seen around here since May. 69 right now at Chestertown, 66 at Denton, 77 here in Baltimore. We're still one of the warm spots after making it to 83 this afternoon. We're at 73 at Westminster, but say goodbye to the 80s for a while as look at these temperature deficits. We're about 9 degrees down over 24 hours ago here in Baltimore, and this is just the beginning. How about 17 degrees off out there in places like Cumberland in Western Maryland, 8 degrees down at Hagerstown. So it comes down even further as we work through the next couple of days around here, probably a couple of nights. It's going to be in the 40s. That's the coldest that we've been. The last time we were in the 40s was back on May 11th. Earlier this spring. HD radar showing that latest weather maker moving away. There's the rain with it moving toward Richmond and Salisbury, so we don't have to worry about showers, at least for a little while, as this cold front continues to shift its way down to the south and east. That's the latest weather maker taking the rain with it. The much cooler air is setting up, and it's going to stay with us for tomorrow and into the very early weekend. And then the tropics, they're getting going too. Thankfully, this cold front's keeping this off the coast. This is Fiona making the close pass in the next 24 to 36 hours to Bermuda. We could see some swells along the Delmarva, some of the beaches out of that. But outside of that, it will move north and eventually impact southern and eastern Canada. The Canadian Maritimes could have a historically strong Category 1 strength storm. May turn extratropical as it gets there, but storm move their way by this weekend. There's Gaston out in the open Atlantic. Things really active now in the Atlantic after a quiet first portion of the season. A high chance of development that's now over the southern Caribbean. Looks like that's going to be pushing its way up into the Gulf of Mexico, somewhere between the open waters and potentially western Cuba. Really depends on exactly how this fair weather system over the Atlantic kind of arcs itself, if you will, as to how this thing's going to steer. Will it end up toward Florida? Will it end up toward Louisiana or Texas? It could end up anywhere there, but it could be a named stronger storm by the time it does so in the next week or two. Also a low and medium chance of development in the eastern portion of the Atlantic. Now around here, clearing skies overnight actually looks pretty good. It's going to be chilly. You'll need some jackets in the morning for the kids. Lows in the 40s and 50s. And then by tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be struggling through the 60s. Again, some of the chilliest air we've seen in months. Breezy, cooler on Friday. Nice day on Saturday after a chilly start. 74, near 80 on Sunday, that is. Some scattered showers for Ravens parties. And then it turns cooler into next week once again.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. A fan favorite returns to Camden Yards tonight. Trey Mancini, longtime Orioles first baseman, makes his first trip back to Baltimore since being traded. Morgan Adson will have more in his return in Sports Unlimited. On the gridiron, don't miss the Ravens take on the New England Patriots in Foxborough, Massachusetts. The game is Sunday at 1 p.m. right here on Fox 45. Coming up at 5 o'clock, an attempted robbery steps away from the gate of Barks Animal Shelter, how that's highlighting a troubling trend of youth crime. And bad dreams can lead to health problems when you're awake. Coming up, why doctors say nightmares can cause dementia. Making headlines, West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin reveals his permitting for Farm Bill. Now, he believes that will cut through red tape and help pass new pipelines across the country, including in his own state. Many Republicans want the same thing but aren't supporting it, while progressives oppose it because they believe it helps big oil. Manchin isn't happy.
I've never seen stranger bedfellows than Bernie Sanders and the extreme liberal left siding up with the Republican leadership in the caucus. I've never seen this happen. So it's come to me, what I'm hearing is it's like a revenge politics.
According to Manchin, Republicans are opposing the bill because Manchin struck a deal with his own party to pass the Inflation Reduction Act, a replacement for Build Back Better legislation the GOP thought was all but dead. Permitting reform is expected to be included in a government funding bill, but it's unlikely to get the 60 votes needed to pass. J.P. Morgan head Jamie Dimon is among those not singing the praises of cryptocurrencies. Here's what he had to say about them at a recent congressional hearing.
I'm a major skeptic on crypto tokens, which you call currency, like Bitcoin. They are decentralized Ponzi schemes. Every year, $30 billion of ransomware, AML, sex trafficking, stealing. It is dangerous.
While Dimon is a critic of Bitcoin, his bank uses blockchain such as the JPM coin, which helps the bank conduct agreements with financial institutions to take out short-term loans. Other financial experts share Dimon's skepticism, saying crypto isn't useful for anything other than committing crimes. We have a health alert right now. The Maryland Department of Health is expanding eligibility for the monkeypox vaccine. People who are immunocompromised, have had multiple or unknown sexual partners over the last 2 weeks, or anyone who's aware of their partners over the past 2 weeks has been exposed to the disease. State health leaders had been recommending that shot for anyone who'd been exposed over the last 2 weeks. Well, people who frequently experience bad dreams could be at an increased risk for dementia. Researchers say middle-aged people were 4 times more likely to have a cognitive decline over the next decade compared to those who didn't have nightmares. Elderly people were twice as likely to have dementia. Scientists say bad sleep may cause the buildup of proteins on the brain associated with dementia. Well, there may now be a better measure to someone's healthy weight than BMI. According to the Cork College of Medicine in Ireland, officials say taking someone's waist-to-hip ratio is a better predictor of early health risk. That reflects abdominal fat, which they say is a better indicator of mortality risk than BMI because it measures where someone is storing fat. Coming up at 5, a Baltimore County student hit by a car going home from school, why his mother says more should be done to stop this kind of thing. And a live look at Camden Yards ahead of the Orioles game against the Astros. What fans think of Trey Mancini's return to Baltimore. No. Baltimore's youth crime crisis stretches to preteens. Fox 45 News questions how city leaders are handling young offenders after an incident outside an animal shelter.
A pair of violent incidents in area schools, why parents are calling for increased safety getting to school and once their children are there.
Mount Airy's police chief addresses the homemade bomb scare at a Baltimore County school, how police were able to track down the suspects and avoid a disaster.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
I'm Kai Jackson. We're following 3 big stories tonight. New information from police after a body is found in a car on fire in Baltimore City.
2 students injured in a pair of school incidents, how the fight for safety is extending from the classroom to the streets.
We begin with an armed robbery at Barks Animal Shelter and the renewed concerns about the juvenile justice system.
The juvenile justice system in Maryland right now is severely broken. The public is basically in the dark about what's going on.
Mackenzie Frost is following the Barks attempted robbery in Cherry Hill. Today, that shelter has reopened.
And Mackenzie, are you learning anything new about what happened there?
Well, Mary Kay, we're still going through the police report. Police not really giving us any new information today. Instead, BPD giving us that incident report, which Fox 45 already had yesterday. But here at the Barks Animal Shelter, you can see it is open. People are coming and going now after it was shut down earlier today. There was a security guard sitting right outside these gates, but people are still coming and going after operations are back up. Now, according to the police report, 2 kids, one possibly as young as 11 years old, were involved in this attempted armed robbery. But right now, police tell me no suspects have been arrested.
And Mackenzie, these kids apparently involved in this are just really the latest example of the growing trend of juveniles involved in crime. It feels like every day we're reporting another story. Is there anything happening at the state level to address this problem?
Yeah, Mary, you're right. It does seem like more and more young people are getting involved either as victims or perpetrators of violence in Baltimore City. Earlier this year during the legislative session, there was a sweeping juvenile justice reform package that was spearheaded by Baltimore City State Senator Jill Carter, and that made it so kids under the age of 10 could not be charged with crimes. But there was another bill backed by Delegate Dahlia Attar that would have aimed to bring more transparency to the juvenile justice system. This bill, backed by the Baltimore City lawmaker, would have allowed a searchable database to be created so the public could go in and learn more information about what's happening inside that system. Now, that bill would have still shielded these juveniles' names from the public, but she tells us that working in this area within the criminal justice system, this could have helped ensure that there was more accountability to this area of the issue.
We had juveniles that would start off with a minor crime, and once they're in the system, they'd come back for something else that's even worse and worse. And then, unfortunately, many of these juveniles end up becoming adults and committing crimes as well.
Now, that bill did have some support from the Baltimore Police Department, as well as at least one member of the Baltimore City Council, Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer. Those pairs talked about their support for the bill in Annapolis. However, the bill did not gain enough traction for it to make it through the General Assembly. Earlier today, I sent an email to the delegate to see if she has any plans to reintroduce that piece of legislation when lawmakers return to session in January. But so far, I'm still waiting for a response. We're live in Cherry Hill. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
We have an update to the man found dead inside of a burned out car in Leakin Park overnight. Police connected this case to a call for stabbing and abduction in Anne Arundel County. Police say the victim was abducted from a garage at the Arundel Preserve Hotel. Questions surround this mystery. We have a reporter gathering information right now, and we'll have a live update on Fox 45 News at 6.
Well, Mount Airy's police chief is giving more clarity on the bomb threat at a Baltimore County middle school earlier this week. His detectives used a tip from the suspect's mother-in-law, believed to be the target of the threat, to help track down the suspects at a motel in Mount Airy.
Our officer didn't discount that. To his credit, he took that information and he looked into it more deeply and actually conducted a little bit of investigating himself to kind of verify what and kind of concur with what the victim was telling us at that point. So with all that information, that's what led us to contact the FBI and the ATF and the Howard County Police.
Well, 43-year-old Joseph Vickery is accused of making the device, driving it from Mount Airy to Baltimore County. His wife, Kristen, was arrested on drug charges. Chief Wright says domestic history preceded the bomb threat. As for parents of students at Pine Grove Middle, which had to be evacuated, they're irritated at what they call a slow response from police.
For me, it's kind of like, how hard is it to go and say, hey, there's been an incident, we're working with first responders, but this is what's going on.
Joseph Vickery is also facing several illegal firearms and drug charges. Chief Wright said he could not comment on what charges Kristen is facing.
We're about a month into the new school year, and parents are voicing concerns not only over children's safety in the classroom, but also on the way to school. Rebecca Pryor shares one mother's story of how her 10-year-old's injury while crossing the street could have been prevented. We begin with the story that you're seeing first on Fox. A Baltimore City father says he'll never send his son back to city schools after his son was beaten Monday. Maxine Stryker explains.
Malik Allen is a 10th grade student at Reginald F. Lewis High School in Northeast Baltimore.
You can't win for losing in this town. It's sad to say.
Or should we say, was a student there.
He's never going back to Baltimore City Public Schools.
Malik's father, Hassan Giordano, says his son won't be going back after he says he was viciously beaten Monday morning at school.
The doctor said he had a concussion and a seizure during the incident.
Malik says he doesn't remember what happened, but his face tells the story.
Not at all, besides getting dropped off in the morning.
When Giordano arrived at the school Monday, he says he wasn't able to get a straight answer about what happened to his son.
They would not show me the videotape of what happened. I was given 3 different accounts of what happened.
And then he says he was handed a transfer paper for his son, suggesting he enroll him elsewhere.
We need solutions. I mean, you can't keep having these incidents, covering them up, sweeping them over, and then there's no parent in Baltimore City, I can tell you right now, that feels safe sending their kids to city schools. They just don't. But most of us are in a situation that what can you do?
Giordano says he never felt good about sending his son to Baltimore City Public Schools. At one point, Malik did attend a private school, but the cost was just too high.
It's really the lion's den. We're literally sending our children off just to learn an education that is not a quality education. They're learning education in the streets. They're forcing parents in Baltimore City who really don't have the means to either put them in private school or move to another jurisdiction that has better schooling.
Now, as Malik recovers, unsure of what the future may hold.
I've been a little dizzy and head hurting. Other than that, I'm good.
His father is left stuck between a rock and a hard place, hoping at the very least someone is held accountable.
I want answers, and I want these children held accountable.
Fox 45 News reached out to Baltimore City Public Schools to see what actions are being taken. They acknowledged our questions, but so far we've not heard back.
Well, it is not the first allegation of violence, of course, in Baltimore City schools. Earlier this month, the parents of a 9-year-old boy filed a lawsuit against his teacher and the school system.
We all know the issues of safety when it comes to public schools, and now our children have to be worried about whether or not they're safe from their own teachers.
Well, this incident happened at Pimlico Elementary School in July of 2019. In this video, we see what appears to be a teacher grabbing the student and pinning him to the ground in the hallway. The alleged victim is a boy with special needs.
I yelled in pain.
There needs to be something done about these people hitting these children.
A Baltimore mother is demanding action after her 10-year-old son is hit by a car leaving Dundalk Elementary School. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live right now with more in this story. So, Rebecca, what are you learning tonight?
Yeah, Kai. Well, we know that the accident happened right here in this area, just outside of one of the school's main entrances. Now, that boy, he did have injuries, but they weren't life-threatening. However, his mother fears that the next accident, those injuries could be.
The whole situation was absolutely traumatizing.
Tiffany Pruitt still shaken after what took place at this intersection last Tuesday.
I looked both ways and then he came out of nowhere.
Her son Desmond struck by a car while on his way home from Dundalk Elementary School.
Lots of pain.
Head trauma and a fractured femur, likely leaving Desmond wheelchair bound for the next 2 months.
The only thing I had on my mind was, is my son okay? That's the only thing I was concerned about.
That was in the moment, but looking back,
I feel like this wouldn't happen if there was a crossing guard.
Tiffany feels more should have been done to avoid the accident altogether. So Fox 45 asked police why this crosswalk isn't manned. Police responded saying it isn't an official intersection and crossing guards only work from 3:20 to 3:50. They claim Desmond was hit around 4:25. However, Tiffany says since students are dismissed by grade level, her 5th grader doesn't get out the door until at least 3:40. And on the day he was hit, she says he left just after 4.
There's after school activities. There's reason kids might be leaving school a little bit later. Like, why aren't they staying at least 30 minutes, a little bit longer after school to making sure all the kids are safely getting home after school?
On top of no one being present to help kids cross the street, Tiffany's also blaming a lack of speed enforcement.
I think they should have more speed bumps, and I think they need to crack down on these drivers that are hitting children.
Trying to put what happened behind them, Tiffany and Desmond say moving forward, they just hope by sharing their story, the same thing won't happen to another student.
There needs to be more awareness.
Especially knowing what happened to Desmond could have been much worse.
They can possibly have a chance of getting hurt so bad that they're not going to be alive no more.
Now, we followed up with police asking them if a crossing guard could be stationed here at this crosswalk. We also asked, could some of the other crossing guards potentially stay longer? As of news time tonight, we're still waiting to hear back. Reporting live in Dundalk, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
A dead rat found in a Baltimore City health clinic and left there for more than 18 months. The discipline facing the city, which kept the clinic open.
Johns Hopkins University considers a new safety proposal, how the addition of campus and hospital police could be a relief for the city.
And an Oriole fan favorite makes his return tonight to Baltimore wearing an Astros uniform. Morgan Atzett has Trey Mancini's reaction to being back in Camden Yards.
And rain moving out and autumn weather moving in just in time for the start of the season. Your walk-in forecast this evening, hour by hour, looking good, although a little on the chilly side as we fall down into the 50s by 11 p.m. I'm going to let you know how cold it's going to be when you wake up for the morning commute tomorrow in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
It's a stomach-turning story. Two photos taken 18 months apart show a dead rat found during a 2020 inspection of a local health clinic, and it appears it's still there. Fox 45 News is pressing for answers after a recent report from the City Inspector General's office also found rodent droppings among other unsanitary conditions.
That's right. Alexa Ashwell joins us now. Alexa, why wasn't the clinic shut down at least for a massive cleaning?
Okay, Mary, that is a question we asked the Baltimore City Health Department. The city is facing pricey federal health violations. And according to the report, the people who rely on this clinic are still dealing with unsanitary conditions.
The shocking pictures of potentially the same dead rat taken 18 months apart and from inside the Druid Sexual Health Clinic here on North Avenue, prompting new questions, including why the city didn't shut down the clinic due to such unsanitary conditions outlined in this follow-up report by Baltimore's Inspector General.
Our report actually said that there was not only the rat, but there was also droppings, there was cockroaches found, there was all types of unsanitary conditions for employees that work at this clinic.
Inspector General Isabel Cummings says her office originally investigated the clinic back in 2020 after complaints over unsanitary working conditions. Another inspection was conducted this year. After complaints, nothing had changed. So why wasn't more immediate action taken or the clinic shut down, as businesses likely would have been here in the city? Over the radio, the mayor questioned on this.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And and that also makes, until they get these things mitigated, right?
Yes, right.
We have that problem with places over and over again, what we call frequent flyers, which is why this has the attention that it has. What I'll say is that they did work, right? But that when you're talking about a building that is in that condition, and you know how long it's been in a condition like that, C4, we know that a lot of that is going to be a deep work that has to happen. It's going to take a long time.
But taxpayer watchdog David Williams says the city has more than enough money to address the problem swiftly.
Remember, the city received $600 million from taxpayers, part of COVID federal relief, right? So the mayor said, okay, $80 million for health agencies. There is plenty of money to fix these problems. That's why this is about leadership.
Now, in response to my question, a spokesperson with the Baltimore City Health Department wrote in part, quote, "We are working to remedy the issues inside the building as best we can. We value the health and safety of our patients and staff and are actively seeking both short-term and long-term solutions to the issues flagged in the report." Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
All right, we're going to go live to Bermuda. You can see the great conditions, the wind just starting to pick up. Hurricane Fiona, with 130-mile-per-hour winds, is headed that way, expected to make landfall sometime tomorrow morning.
Other islands are cleaning up following the devastation of Hurricane Fiona. On your left, some of the recovery work underway in the Turks and Caicos. Officials are thankful no one was killed.
The governor of Puerto Rico was on hand to tour some of the damage there, including the heavy flooding and mudslides. Nearly 1 million people on the island are still without power. And here at home, we saw a little rain around lunchtime. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers here with a look at Friday and the weekend.
Yeah, we promised you that rain late morning, early afternoon, and yep, that's what happened. Now the clearing skies and some of the chilliest air since May coming for us. So all you fall weather lovers, here we go. 77 degrees. It's still relatively warm, but this warm air is on its way out. We had a high of 83 earlier on this afternoon. Winds now out of the west-northwest at about 22 miles an hour. Humidity is at 37%. So that is on the fall. And our dew point, that's how we measure how much moisture is in the air. It's in the upper 40s. So we are drying and drying quick. And dry air can warm up during the day, but it really chills down overnight. And that's what's going to happen tonight, is that autumnal air moves in. By the way, autumn comes 9:04 p.m. this evening. 77 here in Baltimore, 72 at Cockeysville. We're at 69 at Elkton, 69 at Denton, and 76 Laurel Way. But I want to call your attention to this huge, massive temperature change, going down by about 9 to 20 degrees over 24 hours ago in the wake of this front. So we were just at the beginning of the chill down, and it's going to get colder from here on out. It's also going to be kind of windy, too. Some winds up to 30 miles an hour tonight and tomorrow to add to that chill. Showers and thunderstorms off the coast now. That's with that latest weather maker, that cold front, pushing all the warm air away and bringing the much cooler air in. I want you to notice, too, look what's down to the south. That big batch of cloud cover, that's Fiona. And Fiona right now is a Category 4 as it's making the nearest pass to Bermuda. It's going to have some high seas, maybe some tropical storm force conditions, and eventually could be a historically strong storm. It'll be extratropical as it's doing so, but historically strong storm to affect places in Newfoundland, in Canada, into this weekend. We could see some higher than average swells on our beaches, but that's about it. Then Gaston over the open North Atlantic, down south in portions of the extreme southern and southeastern Caribbean. There also is a high chance of development. This one is one to watch as it makes its way kind of curving up towards the entryway to the Gulf of Mexico. Could affect anywhere, maybe as a named storm into next week from Florida all the way east to portions of the Bahamas or maybe as far west as Texas, and then low to medium chance of development out in the tropics way out there in the eastern Atlantic. Overnight tonight, look at those temperatures settling into the 40s and 50s, early risers by the time you wake up tomorrow morning. And by tomorrow afternoon, we just make it up to 67 degrees, coldest that we've been likely since May 27th. Another chilly start on Saturday, 74 on Saturday for the afternoon, 79 Sunday. That's our next chance of showers with a weather maker there, and then cooling down again next week.
The Orioles are trying to stay alive in the wild card race. The O's take on the Houston Astros.
That's right. Morgan Atzett live at the ballpark in Morgan. It's a homecoming of sorts for fan favorite Trey Mancini tonight.
Yeah, guys, since the end of 2016 when he got called up, this is what he's known as home, his home ballpark, Camden Yards. But for the first time tonight, the first of a four-game series, Trey Mancini right there, sporting the Astros uniform, saying his hellos, catching up with folks for that homecoming that you're talking about. Now, the O's and Astros have faced each other since he was dealt last month in Houston, but this is the first time Mancini will be at Camden Yards with everything kind of foreign to him as the opponent on the visiting side.
You know, you kind of want to just treat it as just another road trip as much as you can, but it was funny coming in, you know, landing at BWI, coming up 295 into the city, a drive that I made 1,000 times probably, you know, for a lot of different reasons. And yeah, it's so familiar, but yeah, you got to remember that you're here as a visitor now.
So that was moments ago when we talked to him, and that was moments when he just arrived at Camden Yards, kind of having to turn left instead of turning right and figuring his way out around this ballpark. And he admitted he got lost a couple times just arriving because he's so used to being here with the home team. But he is with the Houston Astros, the best team right now in the American League, playing catch-up, but also they're trying to get home field advantage clinched for the rest of the season as the Orioles are just 4 games back in the wild card. So there's a lot going on tonight with Trey Mancini's homecoming here with the Astros at Camden Yards for the first time on the visiting side. But the Orioles still have a lot to play for, and they tell me they are not done with the fight, and they're going to take it out on the Astros tonight for this first of 4-game series. You'll hear that later on in sports. Reporting live at Camden Yards, I'm Morgan Atzett.
Utility boards to be formed. Why applications in one nearby county have become a hot commodity.
I'm Christine Frizzell with a new look at extreme measures on border policy. Why a lack of a clear federal plan is making way for state leaders to take measures into their own hands.
Well, the White House has made it clear its policies on immigration would be vastly different from former President Donald Trump. But arrest records have been broken nearly every month this year. And as Christine Frizzau explains, more and more people are asking, what's the plan now?
Since taking office, President Joe Biden has halted construction of the border wall, ended the Remain in Mexico policy, and fought to end the expulsion of migrants under the pandemic-era policy Title 42. Administration officials at the same time issuing these warnings to would-be migrants.
The border is not open. Do not come.
The border is closed. The border is secure.
But it rapidly became clear those warnings were not being heeded. Even in the early days of the Biden presidency, confidential polling data obtained by the New York Times showed immigration as a growing vulnerability for the president, with surveys showing voters do not feel he has a plan to address the situation at the border. With the numbers now passing 2 million encounters in less than a year, Republicans are eager to point out that lack of a plan.
Unfortunately, this administration has been absent.
On the White House website, a single paragraph under priorities outlining the need for a fair and orderly immigration system that welcomes immigrants, keeps families together, and allows people to more fully contribute to our country. So what we're starting to see more and more here is, in the absence of a clear federal immigration plan, state leaders starting to take measures into their own hands.
Today, I have issued this executive order designating cartels as terrorists in Texas.
Governor Greg Abbott's state of Texas at the forefront of this trend, even raising money to pick up construction of the border wall, as he and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis paid to transport migrants to Democrat-led cities like New York and Chicago.
We have a broken immigration system that does need to be fixed, but in order for that to occur, we need responsible partners on the other side of the aisle.
An aisle seeming to grow wider by the day. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
Coming up, Roger Federer's finale on deck. The tennis legend chats about his longtime rivalry with Rafa Nadal before his last pro tournament.
Will some Americans have to lose their jobs as a trade-off for lower inflation? I'm Atrell Deshar with more of what the Federal Reserve says is necessary pain.
Johns Hopkins University is going to listen to the public tonight on a plan to start its own police department, which would serve its campuses and hospitals.
That's right. Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live with a preview of tonight's town hall. Jeff?
Well, right now, the Hopkins campus has about 1,000 of these private security guards currently securing this campus. But the university is wanting its own police force, one with full police powers, and is ready to make another bold move toward getting it. As you recall, a similar move 2 years ago prompted protests from those demanding less law enforcement, not more. And at the time, university 2 years ago put its plans on hold. But tonight, it's launching a community meeting where it's expected to lay out its plan for a private police force. 2 years ago, the legislature gave Hopkins the green light to move forward. And at the time, former Congressman Elijah Cummings was a passionate supporter.
Somebody said Hopkins gets whatever Hopkins wants. It ain't about that. It's bigger than that. It's about life and death.
We're already drafting a memorandum of understanding and hoping to present it to the city, but opponents tonight are urging the mayor not to sign it. We are live. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Well, in Prince George's County, council members are working to start a police accountability board, already receiving dozens of applicants for the 11-member committee. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. walks us through the selection process.
In the wake of the death of George Floyd and the protests which followed, Maryland adopting a host of measures aimed at police reform, among them the creation of citizen police accountability boards in each county as a place for citizens to have their complaints heard. They were supposed to be up and running by July 1st, but in Prince George's County, the process has been delayed, with the county council finally approving its plan just 3 weeks ago. Councilmember Jolene Ivey saying they wanted to get it right.
It's going to be the way that the public is sure that they're having their voice heard.
The council deciding on an 11-member board. They will appoint 5 board members, and the county executive will name 6, including the chair. This evening, the county executive Alsobrooks will introduce these 5 people to the community as her choices, the 6th recently withdrawing from consideration and will soon be replaced. Spokesman John Erzin saying each is qualified.
Certainly representing men, women, and different ethnicities as well.
The county council has named this list of board applicants as essentially those making the first cut. They will be introduced to the community next week with a final list complete by late October.
When we select 5 people to serve, we know that these 5 people are going to represent the community.
Among those on the council's first list of selections is activist Amity Pope, a founder of PG Changemakers. She has led rallies in the streets and sees herself as a logical choice.
The composition of the board is very important in its cultural diversity and its individuals' experience, gender, socioeconomic status. Representation matters.
Across the state, mixed results with setting up these police accountability boards. Baltimore City's is still a work in progress. Baltimore County named its 9-member board this week. Anne Arundel County already up and running.
And that was Brad Bell reporting. Also in Prince George's County, police are continuing to enforce a curfew meant to deter young offenders. Anybody under 16 has to be home by midnight on weekends and 10 p.m. on weekdays if they are not with an adult. First violations get a reminder to go home. The second time caught out late, kids have to wait with police for a guardian to pick them up. Parents and guardians could also see fines of up to $250 if their kids don't adhere to the curfew.
Federal investigators have joined the search for a man wanted in connection to an attempted human trafficking case. Alexa Ashwell is here with a preview of tonight's Maryland's Most Wanted.
In this case, it's all the underlying factors that are indicative of human trafficking. And if they're involved in grooming young women and have no problems sexually assaulting them, who knows what they're capable of?
Okay. And a Baltimore man's saliva has connected him to a 2019 road rage murder in Dundalk. 32-year-old Ricky Charles was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Melissa West. Police say he shot West in front of her home and then spat on her face before driving away. Charles is scheduled to be sentenced in January. He could face life in prison without parole.
The Federal Reserve is hiking interest rates again this week, saying the full effects of their decision hard to predict at this time. What we do know is mortgage rates are at their highest since 2008, and on Wall Street, all three major indices saw another day in the red. National correspondent Dr. El Nashar has the story.
The Federal Reserve's dual mandates are in for a clash. Bring down inflation while achieving maximum employment.
I wish there were a painless way to do that. There isn't.
Raising interest rates are designed to slow down the demand that's outpacing supply in order to lower inflation. But slowing the economy is expected to eliminate some jobs. The current unemployment rate is 3.7%. The Fed projects that will rise to 4.4% by the end of next year. Before the pandemic, the last time the U.S. had that unemployment rate was August 2017. That exact month, inflation was exactly where the Fed wants it, about 2%. Today, it's more than 4 times that.
The unemployment rate is about 3.7%, one of the lowest in history.
President Biden often pointing to the labor market as a source of strength in the economy. But the tightness of it, with about 2 open jobs for every person looking for work, is causing strain across sectors, often limiting productivity, like at this restaurant outside Seattle.
We can't open the full restaurant until we have full front of house servers, bussers. We're really short on dishwashers.
The labor shortage also hitting the manufacturing industry with more than 800,000 vacant jobs. But some economists say job cuts this time could look different if employers can't lay off people they were never able to hire in the first place.
We can't find enough workers, right? And so I think that's going to mean that we're starting off any downturn, if we have one, in a much more positive place than we would have been otherwise.
Even Powell acknowledges no one knows if the Fed's process will lead to a recession and how bad one could be. J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon telling lawmakers his biggest fear.
The most important thing is to avoid stagflation. Stagflation is the most damaging to every part of society, every industry.
Meaning high inflation, high unemployment, and slowed growth, a scenario even harder to fix than the present. In Washington, I'm El Nashar reporting.
Federal investigators have joined the search for a man wanted in connection to an attempted human trafficking case. Here's Alexa Ashwell with Maryland's Most Wanted. Alexa?
Kai, investigators are looking for this man, Ramon Ruiz. He's wanted for second-degree rape and is accused of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl right here in Baltimore. Investigators detailing Ruiz is part of a larger investigation involving his wife. Authorities say she took in the child and was planning to send her to another man across the country.
In this case, it's all the underlying factors that are indicative of human trafficking. And if they're involved in grooming young women and have no problem sexually assaulting them, who knows what they're capable of?
How authorities found the child, where the wife is, and the latest on the search for Ruiz, plus the latest capture as a result of tips from viewers. That's tonight on Maryland's Most Wanted at 10. Back to you.
Thank you, Alexa. Wheel of Fortune fans this weekend have a chance to watch a show taping in person. The crew will be at Maryland Live Casino in Hanover this Saturday and Sunday. Be More Lifestyle's Mark Clark and game show host Mark Wahlberg have take us through what you can expect right now.
So if you're a wheel watcher, as most of America is, we're bringing sort of a celebration of the TV show to you. So it won't be on TV, but you could play, and even if you don't play, you could be a winner. It's the whole set, it's the letters, it's the wheel, it's the prizes. And we got people coming right out of the audience to play. And then sometimes when they win, we match that prize with people in the audience that didn't even play, that just lucky to be there.
Shows will be Friday night at 8, Saturday night at 7 o'clock. Gates open 90 minutes before both shows. Tickets start at $25. And as always, you can watch Wheel of Fortune weeknights at 7:30 on Fox 45.
Well, one last chance to watch a legend in action this weekend. Tennis superstar Roger Federer expected to play his final tournament before retiring. He'll be taking part in this weekend's Laver Cup in London. The tournament matches Europe's best players up against the rest of the world. Federer will be competing in doubles as a partner with his longtime rival Rafael Nadal, and he hopes the relationship between the two stays strong.
For as long as we battled together, to having had always this respect for one another, the families, our coaching teams, we always got along really well, and for us as well to go through a career that we both have had and to come out on the other side and being able to have a nice relationship, I think is maybe a great message as well to not just tennis but sports, but maybe even beyond that.
Federer's match will begin tomorrow at 2. You can watch it live on the Tennis Channel.
Caught on camera, a Baltimore County police officer appears to repeatedly punch a person, while one law enforcement expert says the solution is simple.
Oregon rolls out some new wildfire tracking technology. How much time researchers could save before wildfires get out of hand.
And for the beginning of fall, it certainly feels like, and if you're going out to the O's game this evening, it's going to feel like fall, too. We've got 69 degrees for the first pitch at 7:05, dropping into the blustery 60s. Some of the winds could affect the game, up to 35 miles an hour. I'm going to let you know how chilly it gets by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, how you're going to have to dress for the first full day of fall tomorrow. My Weather Authority forecast.
Well, viral video showing an officer appearing to punch a suspect in his head multiple times. Now, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski says he wants this entire incident reviewed. Joining us now for this week's Fox Undercover, former police commissioner, current talk show host Ed Norris. Ed, we've shown many videos. You and I have talked about this on Fox Undercover multiple times. Videos come out, they automatically get the public judging them right away, and then it's slow for police to respond. Apparently, Baltimore County police officers say they were wearing body cameras and they were on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the outrage is about, but whatever.
I have plenty to say about this. I mean, I saw the video. I see what people saw, what they recorded. But the fact is, I just love when civilians decide to chime in. It's like they're watching a movie.
Well, and the reaction, though, is what you see. And this is what Baltimore County police are saying, that you're just seeing a snippet of it. It was edited. It started at one incident. But there was at least, and you can see it on our website, foxbaltimore.com. We have it not fuzzed out there. And you can see the officer punching, it appears to be the guy in his head, either with his hand, a fist, or his elbow multiple times. And Baltimore County police are saying it's because he wasn't listening to the officer and put his hand behind his back. But it looks at some point like the guy's trying to block his face from getting punched.
Well, he should have put his arm behind his back. He wouldn't have gotten punched. You don't fight with the police. You know, we could solve all these problems in America if people would stop fighting with the police. If you don't fight with them, they don't punch you in the face. Trust me, I did it for 25 years. Doesn't happen. If it does, they're rogues. It doesn't happen. And you know what? When you're in a fight with a police officer, whether or not you have a gun in your possession or not, and these kids did, one, there's a gun in the fight. It's on the officer's hip, and he treats it that way, and he's not getting paid to get killed. He's going to win that fight. The police don't get paid to lose. End of story.
And this is happening in a strip mall right near Woodlawn High School. It's close to that high school there. And the 17 and 19-year-old, the police were releasing the 19-year-old's identity, but said that they both were carrying illegal handguns at the time of this incident. I don't know if the one who's on the ground fighting with the officer actually had the gun on him at that point, but another officer comes over and finally handcuffs him, and they pick him up, and then they take him away. So what led up to that point, though, if an officer hears there's a handgun or a gun involved or an armed robbery, they come about it a little different, right?
Of course. I mean, you know, if someone's armed, you're going to call a man with a gun call. It's one of the most serious you're going to get. But the fact remains, I'd like to challenge anybody, from the county executive to people in the county council, people in the media. I'll tell you what, pick the smallest person in the room. Try to handcuff them if they don't want to be handcuffed. It's a fight. And pain compliance is a real thing. If you don't comply, they're going to inflict pain upon you. It's a really dangerous job. Really, really dangerous. Police officers killed every 53 hours on average in this country, many times with their own gun. That's why this happens. Stop fighting with the police. It's a simple end to this. It really is. These discussions have gotten preposterous.
And Norris, we'll leave it right there. You can always hear Ed every morning, Monday through Friday on Sports Radio 105.7 The Fan from 6 to 10 a.m.
Well, we're counting down the last hours of summer right now. How do we do that? Well, we check in with Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers. So I'm on a plane out of here. You guys enjoy fall. I'm heading somewhere
right,
warm.
yeah, you're going to go to Florida or someplace else. Yeah, we got a chill on the way here for tonight.
Okay.
And also tomorrow, and also for tomorrow night. Some of the lows could be the chilliest that we have seen since early May. We're talking like May 11th, early in spring. Right now, 77, mostly cloudy skies. So this is about the warmest that we're going to be over the next, say, 1 to 2 days. That's 77 with winds out of the west-northwest at 22 miles an hour, humidity 37%, dew points, they're dropping into the 40s. So feeling more crisp now as the Mile 1 Taos Cam shows the beautiful green leaves, and they won't be green for long as eventually these cooler temperatures, they're going to start changing things. But the green leaves over Towson right now. Currently, winds, boy, they are gusty. 22 miles an hour here in Baltimore. We're at 17. Westminster, 14 miles an hour at Frederick, and 15 miles an hour out of the north and west at Gaithersburg. Add in the gusts, 25 to 30 plus miles an hour. So hold on to your hats, folks. And, of course, if you're going out to the O's game, dress appropriately. Temperatures 10 to 25 degrees colder than they were 24 hours ago, courtesy of the latest weather maker. That is a cold front, a strong one. Moving off the coast now, you can see some of that rain that's pushing off the Delmarva, continuing to move away as that front sifts down into coastal Tidewater, Virginia, and into the Outer Banks. And that's going to keep the showers away. The much cooler air comes in, and it's going to stay here for Friday into Saturday. Now, off into the tropics, thankfully for this cold front here, we're going to actually keep this away from us. This is Fiona. Moving its way right by Bermuda, could have some tropical storm force conditions there, and then eventually moving into Canada. The maritime provinces of Canada could have a historically strong storm there, maybe a Category 1 strength storm. I say that because it'll probably be turning extra tropical as Fiona moves in. and that'll be its final landfall. And say good riddance to Fiona there. Gaston's over the open Atlantic right now. And then, of course, there's this we've been watching. We've been talking about this past couple of days. A high chance of development that's over the southern eastern Caribbean. Look at this. Makes a beeline right up here into the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, at least computer models kind of edging towards the eastern Gulf sometime next week, but it will be strengthening as it does so. So it could be maybe something to really watch closely. Could be a formidable storm by the time it hits the Gulf warm waters, and anywhere from Miami all the way westbound to Corpus Christi, Texas, New Orleans, Louisiana, all going to have to watch us potentially into next week. Also, another couple of low and medium chances of development just off the coast of Africa. So the conveyor belt of tropical activity now continues. Now, overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, temperatures fall through the 60s into the 50s, even some 40s. Again, the first time that we've seen that since early May. Any of the clouds clearing out. Look at that sunshine tomorrow. But high temperatures, boy, they're going to have a hard time. Only stuck in the 60s for tomorrow afternoon. The last time we were in the 60s for highs was back on May 27th. We go to 67 for Friday, 74 on Saturday. Ravens game is up at Foxborough on Sunday. We'll go with a high near 80, 40% chance of showers developing in the afternoon, and then drying out early next week with highs in the low to mid 70s.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Wildfire season is extending longer than usual on the West Coast, but new technology may give emergency responders a better idea of when those fires will start or how to contain them. T-Mobile is funding a series of 5G cameras to detect wildfires before they spread. Some drones are already in use, but these new cameras give a more narrow and accurate focus. The camera's designers say they can detect early signs of a wildfire within minutes, potentially saving lives and property.
I'm Morgan Atzett live at Camden Yards. That is Trey Mancini walking away from us, but still the reunion is happening for his homecoming, the first time as a visitor at Camden Yards, coming up next during Sports Unlimited.
hope he gets a solid ovation because, you know, he's just one of those guys that you can't dislike.
Orioles center fielder Cedric Mullins talking about his old friend Trey Mancini. Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Unlimited. I'm Morgan Atzett live at Camden Yards where it is reunion time. Over my right shoulder, that is the backside of Trey Mancini. Just finished up BP talking to some fans because tonight the O's open up 4 with Houston, and while they've already faced him in an Astros uniform shortly after his trade last month, tonight marks the first time Trey Mancini will play at Camden Yards for the other side.
No, not too much. I honestly haven't really thought about it too much. Obviously, you know, the fans and I here have such a good relationship, and you know, they're always going to be a special part of my baseball experience. So I'm definitely looking forward to it more than anything else. I knew that it would kind of be a lot coming here, and at the same time, you know, we have games to play. I you know, want to try to hit my stride, get a little more consistent at the plate. So that's more of what's been on my mind than anything else, to tell you the truth.
So far, it's been a lot pregame, a lot of reunions. Now, while this is nice for the Orioles, Trey Mancini, and Birdland, there's much more at stake for the O's. Their postseason push via landing that final American League wildcard is still very much alive and well. They are 4 games back with 14 left. 2 straight weeks of baseball ahead to lay it all on the line and try to continue to stun the world with this impressive season.
We're still in that hunt, so just trying to take it all in. At the same time, we're still fighting for something, so I don't want to let that just go by the wayside of, you know, the experience. No, I want to win, so that's what you know, we're going to keep that in mind moving forward.
It's not going to be easy for the Orioles. They have Justin Verlander tonight that they're going to face in their lineup. And, of course, the return of Trey Mancini, that reunion. And the Ravens bring in a big edge rusher, veteran Jason Pierre-Paul. We'll have much more on that tonight during Sports Unlimited. Reporting live at Camden Yards, I'm Morgan Atzett.
Thanks, Morgan. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock tonight, an attempted robbery. The alleged criminals, children, according to police. The incident outside a Baltimore animal shelter that highlights a problem of youth crime. And he was hit by a car just trying to head home. Why a mother says she's afraid for her son's life if more isn't done to protect kids around schools.
A body found in a car that was set on fire in Baltimore. The investigation leads them to Hanover. How police connected that grim discovery to a reported abduction. An attempted robbery outside an animal shelter allegedly committed by kids. pressing leaders on what can be done to address Baltimore's problem with juvenile crime. And a dead rat not cleaned up for 18 months. The health department's explanation for why sanitation failures at a health clinic have not been addressed.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Fox 45 News at 6 starts right now with the exclusive Fox Track, your Baltimore Minute.
A rainy reopening for the Baltimore Animal Rescue and Care Shelter. Barks back open for adoptions, but with an added layer of security. An incident report from the Baltimore police says kids as young as 11 years old are the ones who tried to rob an animal shelter employee at gunpoint. So far, no arrests have been made.
The shocking pictures of potentially the same dead rat taken 18 months apart and from inside the Druid Sexual Health Clinic here on North Avenue, prompting new questions, including why the city didn't shut down the clinic due to such unsanitary conditions, outlined in this follow-up report by Baltimore's Inspector General.
Our report actually said that there was not only the rat, but there was also droppings.
We need solutions. I mean, you can't keep having these incidents, covering them up, sweeping them over, and then there's no parent in Baltimore City, I can tell you right now, that feels safe sending their kids to city schools.
Just into Fox 45 News, an update on the man found dead in a burned out car in Lincoln Park overnight. Police have connected this case to a call for a stabbing and abduction several miles away in Anne Arundel County. Police say the victim was abducted from a garage at the Arundel Preserve Hotel. Now, many questions surround this mystery. Fox 45's Riel Creighton joins us live now from Hanover with the latest on this case. Riel?
And Mary, you can see the surroundings here in this area. There is a hotel, there are several restaurants, and then there is a parking garage that is attached to these residences. And it is inside of this parking garage here where a woman reported last night that she saw a man being stabbed. The details are disturbing. According to investigators, the woman said that she saw two men, one of them stabbing a male victim and a second man who then pulled a gun and forced that victim into the back of a car. The suspects then got in and took off. Fast forward to today, where police responded to a car fire some 30 minutes away at Windsor Mill Road in Baltimore and discovered a man dead inside the trunk of that car. Detectives have connected the victim to this scene, the stabbing and abduction that was reported here at Arundel Preserve last night. Now, we did speak to the hotel. They did not want to comment. We were not able to reach the management of the residences here, but the people who live here in this building quite simply stunned. They had never even heard of, they say, any crimes happening in this area. Police, meantime, are asking anyone with additional information to please come forward. This is a very much an active and ongoing investigation. Tips can go to Baltimore City Police or Anne Arundel County Police. They're working together on this case. Reporting live in Hanover tonight, Riel Creighton, Fox 45 News.
Riel, thank you. An attempted robbery at gunpoint shuts down a popular Baltimore animal shelter. Now they have reopened, but the incident is bringing up renewed concern about kids and crime. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has the details.
Some would say not enough is being done to address the youth violence problem in Baltimore City. We know, according to the police report, that some of the youngest people in Baltimore may have been involved in this, including potentially an 11-year-old child. Today, Barks Animal Shelter back open, operations in place. But this is just the latest example of some of the youngest people either being perpetrators or victims of crime. A rainy reopening for the Baltimore Animal Rescue and Care Shelter. Barks back open for adoptions, but with an added layer of security. An incident report from the Baltimore police says kids as young as 11 years old are the ones who tried to rob an animal shelter employee at gunpoint. So far, no arrests have been made. But these kids, just the latest in a growing, troubling trend: youth violence, children being victims or perpetrators in the city's crime crisis. A 15-year-old squeegee kid charged with killing 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds at the intersection of Light and Conway Streets in July. A month later, A 9-year-old gunned down a 15-year-old girl at her own home. That 9-year-old too young to face charges in Maryland due to the new laws enacted this year.
The juvenile justice system in Maryland right now is severely broken.
Sean Kennedy from the Maryland Public Policy Institute says the uptick in crime among teens and sometimes younger shows the reason why the public needs to know what's going on inside the juvenile court system.
The public is basically in the dark about what's going on.
In Annapolis last year, a sweeping juvenile justice package soared through the General Assembly. Led by Baltimore City Senator Jill Carter, the plan, kids under 10 cannot be charged with a crime at all. After the 15-year-old was killed, Carter says she stands by her legislation, writing in a statement the plan is based on best practices, adding, quote, nothing in the law would prevent a 9-year-old child alleged to have committed a heinous act from receiving developmentally appropriate intervention or rehabilitation programs, services, and treatment. But Baltimore City Delegate Dalia Attar backed a different bill to shine some light on the juvenile system.
Delving deep into that information.
Her bill would have created a database of all crimes involving kids for the public while still shielding their names. The legislation getting support from the police department and city councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer.
When it comes to the non-transparent juvenile system, we have no idea what happens other than that we see the same violent juveniles are reoffending.
The bill stalling in committee, failing to get enough traction to bring information into the public's view. Attar used to work in a juvenile detention center, and she has seen firsthand the importance of implementing consequences.
Where we had juveniles that would start off with a minor crime, and once they're in the system, they'd come back for something else that's even worse and worse. And then unfortunately, many of these juveniles end up becoming adults and committing crimes as well.
According to data from BPD, 10 kids under the age of 18 have been charged with murder this year alone.
Clearly, the focus in the leadership of the city and really in the leadership of the state and the General Assembly has been sort of some of the softer approaches that are consistent with, again, juvenile delinquency, not with, hardcore violent crimes, which is really what we're talking about here. Street robberies, carjackings, shootings, and murders.
Jason Johnson, former deputy BPD commissioner, says all arms of government need to work together to ensure accountability becomes reality.
If we arrest kids, 15, 16-year-olds for committing a robbery or a carjacking, for example, and they're right back out on the street, they're going to commit more. I mean, we see it happen all the time. So there really does need to be some real accountability.
From an Inner Harbor homicide where a 15-year-old was arrested to a high school parking lot where a 17-year-old football player was killed after school and another 17-year-old faces charges for his death. And now kids under 14 apparently trying to rob an animal shelter employee. While leaders mull how to handle the youth violence, it's not stopping. I reached out to Delegate Attar to see if she has any plans to reintroduce her bill in Annapolis when lawmakers return to session, but so far I haven't gotten a response. In Cherry Hill, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
A Baltimore County mother is demanding action after her 10-year-old son was hit by a car heading home from school. The accident happened outside of Dundalk Elementary School. Tiffany Pruitt's son, Desmond, says he looked both ways before crossing, but a car came out of nowhere, fracturing his femur and putting him in a wheelchair for the next 2 months. His mother now demanding more safety measures on the street.
I feel like this wouldn't happen if there was a crossing guard. I personally got out of my car and walked kids across the street to make sure they were safe. I think it's a problem everywhere you go.
Baltimore County Police say there is currently a shortage of crossing guards across the county. They have not responded, though, to our questions about if a crossing guard will be stationed at the street when staffing improves. Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we're committed to investigating any problems that your children run into this year, from teacher shortages to a lack of bus drivers. Call our news tip line, 410-467-5595. You can also send us an email at news@foxbaltimore.com or chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
Johns Hopkins University is holding a forum to determine how to move forward with plans to create a police force. That meeting started at 6 o'clock. Activists don't like the idea of a private police force for the university. Hopkins delayed the plan after backlash when it was first introduced in 2020. Well, Hopkins responded by scaling back the scope of the force and investing in other public safety initiatives, including adding a behavioral health component. Those changes to the plan have not been enough for some community members who say more police isn't the solution to improving public safety. For a link to watch the meeting, head to our website, foxbaltimore.com. Mary?
Guy, thank you. And here's a look at our top trending stories. Number one, a conviction in a 2019 murder case, and the evidence included the suspect's saliva. A jury convicted 32-year-old Ricky Charles on first-degree murder charges in the death of Melissa West. In 2019, investigators found West's body in front of her Fairview Avenue home in Dundalk. Police say Charles and West got into a dispute while driving, and Charles followed her home, then shot and killed her, but spit on her before leaving. Sentencing is in January. Number two, a dead rat, rodent droppings, and other unsanitary conditions at the Druid Sexual Health Clinic. A recent report by the city's inspector general revealed the clinic failed to correct issues discovered at the facility nearly 2 years ago. Pictures show a dead rat found during a failed inspection months ago, still sitting in a storage room. A taxpayer watchdog group tells us the situation is unacceptable for a clinic that's actively helping patients, and the city has more than enough money to address the problem.
The city received $600 million from taxpayers, part of COVID federal relief, right? So the mayor said, okay, $80 million for health agencies. There is plenty of money to fix these problems. That's why this is about leadership.
In response to our questions, the City Health Department said it is working to address the sanitation issues at this clinic and is working on long-term solutions to make sure the facility stays clean once the issues are addressed. Number three, the Ravens are looking to bounce back from an embarrassing loss last week. This weekend, they are headed to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. You can watch this Sunday at 1 right here on Fox 45. Well, a high schooler is speaking out against something she says is hurting education. The backlash to the nationwide effort to ban books from the classroom.
If you have a flight out of BWI this evening, maybe a little bit bumpy. Some winds up to about 35 miles an hour and some cool temperatures setting up, falling down into the 60s, even 50s by about 11 p.m. I'm going to let you know how cold it gets tonight. Some of the coldest air in months. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
I'm Scott Thuman in Denora, Pennsylvania, where the political world is watching one Senate race that could determine who has control of Washington. That story coming up.
Well, the results of the Pennsylvania Senate election could determine who controls Washington. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman has the latest on the race.
Despite the feel of quiet here in tiny Donora, Pennsylvania, it is the stage, like many towns across this state, for an epic battle that could ultimately decide who has control in Washington. The Senate seat fight between Republican TV celebrity Dr. Mehmet Oz and current Lieutenant Governor Democrat John Fetterman. At the Early Bird Diner, this group meeting here every Thursday says they mostly just want someone in D.C. to hear them.
Years ago, they used to listen to the people, and they would talk to the people, but they don't even do that anymore. It's sad that, it's just like we're nobody.
They're fighting. The Republicans can't agree with the Democrats, and they will never work together.
And they hate the rampant mudslinging. Oz accused of not having real Pennsylvania roots and hammered for his ties to Trump. Fetterman portrayed as too liberal and his health and sharpness questioned following a stroke.
I just hate the bashing. I hate the commercials. Yes. They're constant. They're disgusting.
The issues, they insist, matter most. In towns like this all across Pennsylvania, there is a common thread that's likely to have an impact at the ballot box. Economic struggles. Here, 8 in 10 say those higher prices are causing a real hardship.
You're talking fuel oil now at $5 a gallon. So you fill up a 1,000-gallon tank. How many people's just going to come up with $5,000 to heat their house for a half a year?
Republicans seeing a boost in light of soaring inflation and vows to crack down on crime.
John Fetterman's trying to get as many criminals out of prison as he can. Far left John Fetterman, dangerously liberal on crime.
Democrats more fired up to vote after the Supreme Court's controversial decision on abortion.
And now Mehmet Oz is so extreme, he wants to make abortion a crime in Pennsylvania.
Are you looking forward to the election?
I'm just looking forward to a better tomorrow. The election, I've seen enough politicians say that they're going to do something and they don't do it.
Like anywhere, they just want a Washington that'll serve them something good. In Donora, Pennsylvania, I'm Scott Thuman.
Now, a Fox 45 News Alert in 3, 2, 1.
Breaking right now, Hurricane Fiona is closing in on Bermuda. Forecasters say the Category 4 storm will not make direct contact with the island, but residents should prepare for storm surges anyway, strong winds and even heavy rain. When the storm hit Puerto Rico earlier this week, it destroyed homes and flooded communities with more than 25 inches of rain. President Biden announced the federal government will reimburse Puerto Rico for 100% of its costs related to the cleanup for the month.
And around here, protecting us, in fact, from Fiona, a big cold front. And you take a look at the My One Towson cam and also the Toyota Eastern Harbor Sky Cam over Camden Yards, where, of course, the Orioles are in action tonight, chasing the playoffs. We got lots of sunshine, but it is blustery sunshine, and that's in the wake of that latest weather maker. You can see the showers moving off the coast and down into the Atlantic. That is our cold front. The rain from midday out of here. The sunshine back. 74. Winds out of the northwest at 13. Aside from those pesky winds, it's actually fairly pleasant, but that 74 does feel a little cool with that gusty breeze. The dew point nice and low at 50 and humidity only at 43%. So it is a dry, cool wind coming in about 10 to 15 miles an hour. Some gusts up to almost 30 here in Baltimore right now. And again, that latest weather maker, a cold front with showers and storms down Virginia Beach and Raleigh Way, continuing to amble its way south and east. The showers gone. Some cool air, some of the coolest air since May coming our way. And also tropical protection out of this cold front, taking Fiona, pushing it up against Bermuda with some tropical storm force conditions next 24 hours, and then maybe a historically strong storm as it makes its way to its final landfall in Nova Scotia. Then there's Gaston, that's out in the open Atlantic, and also a high chance of development that's pushing its way across the southeastern and south central Caribbean Sea. Eventually, all the computer models, as this thing perhaps strengthens into something named, take this into the Gulf of Mexico. Anywhere from Florida all the way to Texas, New Orleans, Louisiana, all going to have to keep a close watch on this one into next week. Excuse me, low and medium chance of development way out there into the eastern Atlantic. Around here, again, the clouds clear. Look at those temperatures, 40s and low 50s by tomorrow morning. Again, some of that cool air is going to make you put on a jacket or a sweater, and then sunshine for tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to let you know how long that lasts into the weekend in my 10-day forecast.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
As Hurricane Fiona heads for Bermuda and Canada, surf's up at Atlantic beaches, including here in South Carolina. But be careful, rip currents are likely and can be deadly. And a Florida viewer says this black bear interrupted her morning coffee near Pensacola. Black bears are the only bear species found in Florida, and their population is growing.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
In our Assignment America tonight, a school system in Virginia is one of many across the nation proposing a new policy to limit what books students can read in class. Kelly Lynn from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. spoke with a student at the school who says moves like these only hurt kids who are trying to learn.
I think it's ridiculous. Student autonomy is being threatened by this.
Loudoun Valley High School senior Caroline Northedge is an avid reader who's concerned about what's coming to her school. On Thursday, a 3-member Loudoun County School Board committee will begin discussing a new policy that would have schools contact parents when sexually explicit materials are planned for instructional use.
School is a place I come to have my own opinions, to share my own thoughts, to make my own thoughts, to learn my own information.
The proposal known as Policy 5055 is a response to a state requirement Virginia school boards must meet by January 1st. Last February, the Virginia General Assembly passed the bill that gives parents the power to review sexually explicit material before it's taught at school. It's an issue Governor Glenn Youngkin prioritized during his election campaign.
We watched parents so upset because there was such sexually explicit material in the library they had never seen. It was shocking.
According to LCPS, a number of books could be identified as having sexually explicit content, including Kite Runner, Beloved, Little Fires Everywhere, The Odyssey, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, 1984, Their Eyes Were Watching God, and The Handmaid's Tale.
They're really important reads And I think the whole sexually explicit thing is really just attacking heavy themes that are important to student development.
The state requires schools to notify parents at least 30 days before the use of the material and give them the choice to select other options that do not contain sexually explicit content. For 7 News, I'm Kelly Lynn.
Exclusive 10-day forecast takes us into the 60s on Friday, 70s on Saturday. Those 60s, the coolest we've seen since back in late May. Will be at 45 to start the day on Saturday, 74 to end, near 80 on Sunday. That's a chance of rain there in the afternoon. And then work our way into early next week, well into the 70s before another drop off Wednesday, Thursday into the 60s. And it looks like low to mid 70s and maybe turning a little more unsettled as we head into next weekend.
Jonathan, thank you. Well, finally tonight, a Fitbit for rhinos. You may notice the rhinos JP and Jelani supporting a new accessory at the Maryland Zoo. This anklet functions as an activity and GPS tracker, counting their steps, recognizing activity levels, and much more. Information collected about their movements over the next few weeks will contribute to a large collaborative research study and help us understand how different habitats play a role in rhino health. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud's up next. We'll see you back following the Red Sox-Yankees baseball game. We hope you join us late. Have a good night.